Guys, so now we are ready to cut open the brain to look at the internal structures, and then to do that you're going to need your scalpel. Okay, so remember, scalpels are very sharp. Mine's a little dull over the years. I should probably replace mine, but remember, it's still very sharp. And so when you are using a scalpel, remember to never ever cut while holding it. This is a terrible idea. You want to leave your brain in the tray, and then from there you're going to cut towards the tray. Okay, so you're just going to cut right along the longitudinal fissure. When you are making your cuts, try to be strong and decisive. Don't saw back and forth. These are easily destroyed. Oh, mine's so smushed already. Sorry, I know I'm complaining the whole time. Okay, so it might take a couple of cuts. Try to cut only in one direction. Don't saw back and forth. And you're going to continue cutting until it is entirely in two pieces. Ta-da! Okay, not too bad. A little bit of, there we go. Okay. Now we can look at the internal structures here. Okay, so let's start with my favorite. So if we look in the middle, so again, here's the cerebrum here. Here's this right here would be the cerebellum, and we have the pons, the medulla oblongata, the midbrain right in here. Okay, so this right here is what I like to think of as the big C, which is the corpus callosum. The corpus callosum I like to think of as the big C. I don't know why, that just sticks in my brain. And then inside that, if we're very gentle, we can open it up. That actually is the lateral ventricle. Okay, so there's going to be one on each side, one on this side as well, and that would be the two lateral ventricles. Okay, so while we're at it, let's go ahead and follow all of those ventricles. So the lateral ventricle, those are going to be sandwiched between the corpus callosum on the top, that makes up the roof of the lateral ventricle, and then the fornix on the bottom, the floor of the lateral ventricle. And then that's going to flow into a very kind of thin ventricle or space cavity. Remember, ventricles are cavities that are sandwiched between the two thalamuses. The thalamuses? No, I'm not sure. the thalamus would be right here. Okay, see this very circular structure here? That's the thalamus. And so surrounding the thalamus would be the third ventricle. And if you go beneath the thalamus towards your infundibulum, see there's your infundibulum right there. If you go towards the infundibulum, and you can also see the optic chiasma, which is that one right there, that space right there would be the hypothalamus. Remember, hypo means below. Hypo means below. So thalamus here, the circular, I call it the eye of the brain. So that here's the thalamus coming this way towards the infundibulum and towards the optic chiasma. This area here would be the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus there. Okay. So if we follow that, so the third ventricle would be surrounding that, and then the fourth ventricle is going to be down here next to the cerebellum. So find your cerebellum, the cavity kind of next to that is the fourth ventricle, and the pathway to get from the fourth ventricle into the third ventricle into the fourth ventricle is going to be the cerebral aqueduct. Cerebral like cerebellum, like cerebrum, aqueduct as in like a channel for water. Okay, so the cerebral spinal fluid will flow from the lateral ventricle to the third ventricle, down through the cerebral aqueduct, which is this little channel-like structure right here, all the way to the fourth ventricle, which would be, again, next to the cerebellum. Look for the cerebellum. If you have a cavity near the cerebellum, that's the fourth ventricle. And then from there, it would flow into the central canal, which I don't have a good way to do it, the central canal of the spinal cord, the hole in the middle of the spinal cord. Okay, so while we are at the cerebellum, look at this beautiful structure here. Okay, so it looks like a tree. That's the arbor vitae, which is the tree of life. Okay, so that's going to be found inside of the cerebellum. Okay, so cerebellum there. Let's see, so again, here's the pons, there's the medulla oblongata, there's the spinal cord there. What else am I missing? Choroid plexus. So the choroid plexus, if you look into the lateral ventricles, let's see if I can find a good one for you. You should see, oh, there we go. See how we have some kind of dark tan structures? That is a capillary bed, and the capillary bed that creates the cerebral spinal fluid. Okay, so that dark tan, or sometimes even close to blackish structure in that lateral ventricle, that is going to be the choroid plexus. Plexus is in like a knot, the capillary bed that creates the cerebral spinal fluid. You can also find it on the roof. See this dark stuff here too? On the roof of the third ventricle. That's also the choroid plexus. Now the septum pillicitum, that is a very gentle membrane that's going to divide those lateral ventricles. Mine is no longer intact, but if you do have it intact, if you see like a very, very, very thin membrane kind of spanning one of your ventricles, that's going to be the septum pillicitum. So on your dissection projects, just make a note of it on the side and describe its location. Oh, gray matter. Okay, so when you look at the cerebrum, you'll notice that, well, here, you can look at on the cerebellum. That's a good. So you see that how you have gray color, that's the gray matter, and then the white color is the white matter. That's everything.